Hello, and welcome to part 5 of my comprehensive guides series. By this point, you should know everything there is to know about the phrasing and language of cards and all of the game mechanics. Now it's time to put everything together. In this part, I will review how to play each turn in your games of Skyweaver. It's important to remember that Skyweaver is a singleton game, and there are endless deck building options, so absolutely none of your games will look the same. I can provide you with some general guidelines on how to approach your games and things that you should keep in mind. These guidelines will generally apply to both game modes, Discovery and Constructed, but I wrote this assuming you will be playing Constructed with the starter decks. This video is going to be a bit longer because there will be minimal editing so you can see the entire match. I will first play a game against the bot and go into very detailed explanations, and then I will play a game against a real person and speed things up a bit. Alright, so I'm just about to get loaded into a bot match here. I'm starting with the strength starter since that's probably the one you've been playing with the most, and I also think it's the easiest. So I'm just going to load into a bot match here. Beauty of the bot match is, again, as I've mentioned, you have infinite time to look at things and read things. So I'm just going to start explaining how one should approach their games. So first, you gotta start with the opening mulligan, right? You have the option of keeping 4 cards. It's not like other card games where you kind of pick the ones that you want to get rid of type deal. You kind of just pick the ones you want and that's what you start with. So also another thing you want to do is keep in mind whether you go first or second. That's going to change things. So we're going first. So that means we're going to have the 1 mana crystal on our hero and we're going to have the 1 mana crystal in our hand. So that gives us the option of making a 1 mana play, a 2 mana play, or a 3 mana play. Another thing you want to do is open up your deck list. So you can either click this button here, which I think is the same on mobile or PC, or you can press the letter D on your keyboard. That's going to open up your deck list. The nice thing about this game is, again, you don't need any external like deck trackers. Everything is here. It's organized by cost and then also alphabetically. So this doesn't tell you the order you will draw things in, it just tells you what's left in your deck. So in the first few turns, I advise that you pick cards you'll be able to play in the first few turns, of course. But as you kind of get better and better at the game, you'll kind of get the flow a little bit, and maybe you'll hold on to something that's a little more higher cost. So if we're going first, I kind of want to start with a splash. So I'm going to hold on to Rocket. So I think I'm going to play him on turn 1. Now, if I'm planning to do that, that means I'm going to be using all of my mana. So that means the next mana I'll only have 2 to work with. So I'm going to want something that I'm able to play. So I'm going to pick Brimstone. Ideally, it's also a good idea to have like at least 1 draw card and at least 1 piece of removal. Unfortunately, we didn't get that in our opening hand. So, like, this is draw, the Monstro, but he's way too expensive, and you don't really play him for the draw. The only kind of removal we have is the death effect here, Burn to a Crisp, so I think taking Brimstone is good for that. Unfortunately, there's no draw, but I want to keep my hand a really nice low mana curve, so I think I'm just going to take these other cards here. So another thing you want to keep in mind is, what cards are going to help us either win now, but also set us up so we can win later, right? So we want to keep that in mind as well. So let's start with this hand here. So we're playing first. Now, in most card games, the player who goes first usually has the advantage because they can put like pressure on the board and the other player kind of has to respond. Skyweaver, however, I don't know if this is still true. At one point, it was true that the player who went second statistically had a higher chance of winning. I don't know how true that is now, but it is still like usually advantageous for you to respond to your opponent. So for your first turn, you have a lot of options. I already kind of decided on my game plan, but you can either play a unit from your hand, a spell from your hand, or you can even play nothing and just hit with your hero and end the turn. Like honestly, that is a very valid opening strategy, and if you haven't been doing that, honestly, I implore you to try that your next couple of games. You might win a lot more just based off of the fact that you do nothing turn 1. So again, depends on what cards are in your hand. I've already kind of decided to spend all of my mana to play Rocket. I don't recommend spending all of your mana unless you have something else that you can play the next turn, but we have lots of things that we can follow up with. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to play my Rocket. I'm playing Rocket first because he's a 4/3. That's a lot of stats on the board early. And also, he has this neat effect, so other ally units that get summoned are going to have 1 power. And he has lifesteal, so I'm going to get, if this managed to stick on the board, I'm going to get a lot of benefit from that. So no matter what happens, always remember to use your hero. So we're going to make sure we hit there. And we're going to end the turn. Okay, so another important thing to do is, you know, watch what your opponent does. Always make sure you do that. So now, we're going to break down our turn a little more, because now we're past the sort of first turn. So the way I like to think of your Skyweaver turn is kind of like in a set of, like, stages or steps. Having the written guide open will help you kind of follow along with what I'm saying. But essentially, what you want to do is, the first thing you want to do is consider the available information that is on the board. Okay, it's sometimes new players just like pay attention to what's in their hand and just kind of like play stuff, but it's really, really important to consider all of your information before you make a decision. So let's look at the board here. I have a Rocket down. He's got a Grubs down. I don't think the Grubs really did anything. On summon, it dusts the top units of both graves, but he did Molten Heart it to buff it, so it is a 2/4. And nothing really happened from a summon effect. So you want to pay attention for things like, you know, is this unit a threat? Not really. It's a 2/4. Are there anything like attached spells on the board? No. Are there any effects that are down that'll affect what I do? Not really. There's nothing really here that's threatening me on the board. So now that we have that information, we know, okay, there's nothing threatening. We're good. So now some optional things to pay attention to. Looking at your graveyards. So it's turn 1. Looking at the graveyard isn't really essential, but because this is Heart, there's going to be a lot of grave effect happening, so we're going to have to pay attention to the grave in the future game. Next thing we want to pay attention to is your available mana. We have 2 mana now, so we have... Your options are always highlighted. So these are the options that are available to us. We can either play an Emberwolf, or we can play one of our 2 drops. Sometimes you also want to look at your deck. We don't have anything that draws us anything, so we don't really need to pay attention to our deck right now. And, you know, if the opponent had any revealed cards, we'd want to look in their hand too. So there you go. That's all the possible information that we have given to us right now. Now that we have the information, we can make a decision. So, okay, I can play a Brimstone, which means I can get a Burn Triggers when it dies. And I'll also get a nice little buff off of the Rocket. Because I'm being very aggressive, what I can also do is I happen to draw a Windsword. This is going to give my Rocket 2/1 and Shroud. So it's going to buff it a lot. I'm going to get a lot of damage. And it's also going to have Shroud, so he's not going to be able to target it with anything. Now, the benefit of putting Shroud on him is, you know, we're going to get a nice big health swing. And there's really no need to trade. There's no need for that right now. And reason being, if we hit face with our Rocket and heal a bunch, do a bunch of damage, he's kind of forced to respond to that unit. Whereas if we were to trade here, it would be left with 1 HP, and he would have to hit it himself. So I like to force damage. You know, I would rather use my unit to do damage. You know, that way if it dies, at least we got the value out of it, right? So that was the choice I kind of made. I'm going to make sure to hit as well with my hero. I am actually probably going to want to start to chip this down a little bit. I don't really have much in the way of removal in my hand. And you do want to keep your opponent down. So there we go. That was the decision I made. Alright, so now we're watching our opponent's turn again. So now we're just going to repeat what we just did. So we're going to consider the available information. So he put down a Gus. Now he's got a guard on the board. That's a 1/3. It's summoned him a little guy with banner. So now he's got banner. So that's our information. We have these available cards for us to play. And I still have my rocket here. He didn't do anything to the rocket, and we have 3 mana. Now that we've considered all the information, I don't need to look at the graveyard. I don't need to look at my deck because I can't really. We have to make a good choice here. So I think maybe playing the Grimstone or the Emberwolf. Maybe both, because we get some good value out of the death effect. But maybe it's time to push some value out of the Brimstone. So now that we can make more than one sort of play, it's also important to sort of plan your turn. Order is very, very crucial in this game. However, there's nothing really on the board, based on our assessment, that really affects the order in which I do things. So I'm just going to play my Brimstone. I'm going to play my Emberwolf. Here is actually an example of order that happens right here. So now that we're kind of in our attacking phase after we've played our units, if I were to hit this first with my hero, I would be wasting damage. Because in order to get through the guard, I have to hit it with my rocket. So if my rocket is going to hit it anyway, I might as well just hit it with the rocket. That way it kills it first. And now I'm not wasting any damage onto the hero's face. And I think at this point, because I have so much of a board presence, I think I'm just going to hit his face instead, because I have units that can clear this now. And there we go. And then we're going to end my turn. Now we're going to watch our opponent's turn again. It's very easy to sort of tab out and do something else, which is fine when you have more experience. But I think whenever you start, you should really pay attention to what happened. So he killed my Brimstone, and he was very aggressive and sort of hit my face. So the bot here kind of left my units up, which is great for us. So okay, so now let's take it back from the top. Let's consider the available information. I have 4 mana. We take a look at the board state. He's got a bird, still has his banner. Now he's got a friendly fawn here. He used that on the bird to make it a little bit bigger. Here's what I can do. I have 4 mana. I can continue to be very aggressive because, again, I'm not really threatened by a 2/2. And my Oni Smith here will either buff something on my side or do 2 damage to something on his side. So I think I like that play. So now, because I'm only playing the one thing, we don't have to worry about the order in which I play it. So I'm just gonna kill the bird here. And then just keep doing tons of damage. Being very aggressive. And that's really what you want to be doing when you play Strength. I mean, overall, no matter what kind of deck you're playing or what decisions you make or what you have happening, you really just want to make sure that every play you make is like efficient and also gets you closer and closer to your win con. Specifically, our win con is just playing, you know, high statted units and removing anything that he might be putting down. So now, we're getting pretty close to the end of the game, actually. We have quite a bit of stats down. So let's bring it back from the top. So we watched our bot here play his turn out. He swung the friendly fawn into the Emberwolf, and he did a little bit of damage to me. When these things died, nothing had a death effect, so nothing really happened. We're kind of just trading units. So take a look at the information. Now we want to be considering his HP. Because I have 4, 10, I have 11 points worth of damage on the board. So now I'm going to want to be looking into my hand for something that can finish the game. And we have Burn to a Crisp. This does 3 damage to a target, which means we can actually use it right onto the hero. So I think that's the decision that we're going to make. We've considered our information. The information is he can die. And the order of which this happens doesn't matter. And we also have enough mana for it because now we have 5. So here we go. Boom. Exact lethal. And there you go. And we did that in 5 turns. Which is pretty good against the bot. So that's pretty much what you need to be doing every game. So again, just to sort of reiterate those steps, you want to consider the information, look at the board, look at graveyards, know your mana, look at your hand, understand what your cards do, and check your deck and your opponent's sort of hand as necessary. Make a decision, decide on what you want to do, decide what cards you have available and what you think would be sort of the best play to make this turn. Plan out your turn, make sure you consider order, make sure you're playing things in the correct sequence, make sure you're trading your units in the correct sequence, and also watch what your opponent does. Pay attention. I know it's hard to sort of grasp everything at once, but with practice, it'll sort of make more and more sense. And just keep repeating these steps over and over, and eventually they'll become way more automatic. So that kind of went well. So I think what I'll do now is we'll queue into a game against a real person. So now I'm going to queue up against someone who is a beginner, and we're both going to play our starter decks here. Hopefully this kind of simulates the kinds of matches that you'll be running into. My opponent is rather new to the game, but he has some card game experience. Alright, so we've loaded into our game here. Again, the first thing you want to do is consider whether you're going first or second before you choose your cards. We are going first, so that means we do have the option of sort of passing and making him play a card first. But I do see an Oliphant here, as well as some low-cost options. So I think we're going to do sort of a similar thing that we did against the bot. I think I'm going to start very aggressive, because I do have follow-up options. We have 2 sources of draw, which is great, and I think I'll take this piece of removal. So everything is very cheap, and again, we have draw, we have removal, and we can threaten with a very early game high-statted unit that also has shield. So the benefit of playing mirror matches against other people with starter decks is they're going to have most of the same cards that you have for the most part, so you can kind of use that to strategize. So I'm going to use all of my available mana since we are going first. I'm just going to spend all of my mana, play my Oliphant, make sure to hit as always, and we're going to end the turn. So now we're going to watch what my opponent does. Okay, so my opponent did something very smart. He broke the shield that was on the Oliphant, which means we don't get a free trade onto this unit. But I think I'm okay with that. So first thing, let's consider our available information. He has a unit down and he has 1 mana. So next turn he will have access to 4 mana. I have my Oliphant down. I have 2 mana and I have 2 things that I can do. So I think, honestly, I like both of these options. So I think I'm probably going to play my call to action, and I'm going to play another unit to keep applying board pressure. Now we need to consider order. It's always better to draw before you make a decision, because the Amalgam's not going anywhere, but depending on what I draw with my call to action, I might make a different decision. So I have an Emberwolf here, which is now a 4/3 off the call to action. If I were to play the Amalgam, my hand size wouldn't be odd, so I wouldn't get the value anyway. So I'm going to play the Emberwolf. I think I am going to trade, because I do have a lot of stats down. I don't want that unit to get any more value, especially because he's also playing strength, so eliminating units is really key here. If we lose units, our plans are equally foiled. So now we're going to watch our opponent's turn. Okay, so he played 2 removal spells, and one of which put a Firemander in his hand, and he also played an Engine Blade. So he did quite a bit of removal. Now that I see what's kind of happening on the board here, he has another unit in hand that also has 2 HP that would also die to my Claw Swipe. So either way, he either trades this unit next turn or he hits me with it. So I think I'm not going to hit it this turn just because I do have the Claw Swipe and I don't want to take any more damage than necessary. If I were to hit it right now, I would take 2 damage. Next turn, this is gonna gain 1 power. I would take another 3 damage for a total of 5. Whereas if I just use the Claw Swipe, I'm only taking 2 damage. So I think I'm actually gonna play both of my units because I do have 3 mana. The order of which does not matter, because either way my hand size is odd. And I'm gonna end my turn by hitting him here. The nice thing is if this dies, we still get a unit down on the board. And our mana curve is also quite nice because we'll be able to respond with our own beetle next turn. So I actually misspoke earlier. I said we would only be taking 2 damage, but we are going to take the 3 there. So he put down a unit, and he also hit me with that unit. So we have 4 mana available to us now, and we have some units that we can trade with. So the nice thing about my Amalgam dying is I can draw something if my hand happens to be odd. So based off of the information here, we know that if we kill this, he is going to draw a dark card. However, I can't do anything to really prevent that, so it kind of has to die anyway. So we're going to try and make the most of this turn, because that's really key to making your decisions in real games, is sort of making the most of your turn. So this is going to be a problem. It has guard, armor, wither, and lifesteal, so I think I'm going to kill it first with my mortal blow. The order is crucial here, because if I didn't make my hand size odd, we wouldn't get the draw off of our Amalgam. So I'm going to trade, prevent damage, I get value out of the draw, and to end our turn, we're just going to hit. So we've effectively controlled the board, and we've also done damage to him, and we were paying attention to the order in which we played cards. So again, really just going through the same motions every turn. So he played his own Oliphant, and he used an Elderfall, and he hit me. He has units on the board. This will draw him something when it dies. And we have a few options available to us. I can play my Claw Swipe, I could play my Beetle, I can also play my Breaker Crab. Well, I think, because I don't really have the removal piece necessary to get rid of my Oliphant, I think I'm just going to play my Breaker Crab. It'll lose the guard that it has, and we have enough mana to do it. And this way I'll be able to trade into the Elderwood and also get a little bit of damage done. I really don't have another effective way of removing this just yet, so I think we'll kind of have to let it be. So with my 5 mana, I'm going to spend 2 of it. The order of which doesn't matter here, because either way, 1 damage is going to be dealt. And I think I'm going to end my turn there. Okay, so he Breaker Crabbed my Breaker Crab. But he still has his 2/5 down. And now he put down a Brimstone on death. That will give him a Burn to a Crisp card. And we'll see what he does here. Alright, so he traded into my Crab. Great, okay, so now considering the board state, there's a lot of units here. I'm going to want to try my best to get rid of them. I also have the option of playing either my Beetle, or I could play my Removal and my Rocket. So if I were to play my Beetle, now would be a good time to check our deck list. I would draw a dark card, and the only dark card left is the Beast. Having the Beast sounds like a pretty good idea. We also want to consider our available mana. We are 1 turn away from Band Together. So having a nice sticky unit that kind of stays could be an option for our Band Together next turn. I think I want to get some damage dealt to the board. So I think I'm going to play my Claw Swipe. I'm also going to play my Rocket. Now to make this trade here, I'm gonna trade with my Zomboid first. It has Wither and it'll do 1 damage, meaning that when I trade, I will take less damage, and the Zomboid Death will also do some damage. And then I will just simply hit his face. And now we'll see how he responds. So order didn't really matter too much that turn. Didn't really matter if I played the rocket or the claw swipe first. Which order I hit things with. Okay, so unfortunately my unit didn't stick around for the band together. But turn 7 is here, and I do have a couple of other options. So I could hit with a really big threat. A 9/9 could be a big deal for him to deal with, and it would consume all of my mana. I unfortunately don't have any removal pieces anymore to help get rid of the units that are down. I can also play a beast, or I can play a beetle. I think I'm gonna keep pressuring and threatening the board. So I think I'm gonna play my El Monstro, and on Sunset we'll both draw a card, so I have a chance of drawing these 1-cost cards. El Monstro draws cards, specifically. So that doesn't mean a spell or a unit, it means both. We're going to get any one of these 3 cards here, and I'm really liking this removal, so I think I'm also going to punch that unit there. The reason why I punched that unit instead of this unit is because, well, this unit will do less damage to me, and I can finish it off with the beast next turn if I need to, because the beast has a banner. Or maybe we'll get lucky enough and he trades everything into the monster for me. Yep, so it looks like... Oh, he used a chomp. Okay. Considering the board, he doesn't have too much left in his hand. He's really just kind of top decking, so I can kind of take advantage of this now. I do have 8 mana available to me, so if I were to maximize the amount of units I play, I can play a beetle, a clawbear, and a brimstone. So I think that might actually be the decision I make, because if they do happen to stick around, I do have a band together. And if they don't happen to stick around, my beetle will draw me a dark card. I believe we're out of dark cards at this point, so we will be out of decking. And I will get a burn to a crisp, which will also give us some value back. So I'm going to play all these units, the order of which does not matter. And I don't think I want to take any more damage, especially considering the board I'm building. So I'm just going to finish the turn by hitting his face here. Alright, so he hit me with his claw swipe. Okay, he made a common mistake that new players make. Be careful about armor. You cannot damage that with 1 power. So, thankfully, the beauty of Skyweaver is you can always capitalize on your opponent's mistakes. So now considering the board, he has 2 considerably weak units, and I can make some plays here. So band together, ideally we want to use it when we have, you know, more than 1 unit down. Unfortunately, we did lose a lot of units. So I think I want to keep, you know, keep my hand advantage going. So I think I'm just going to play the beast. It's a big unit. He doesn't have too much left to deal with it. And I have 9 mana, so I could even play a burn to a crisp if I want. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the burn to a crisp on the Zomboid. That way its death effect doesn't hurt me. And I'm going to play the beast. The order of that didn't matter. Then my decision here is I'd rather keep my unit alive. But I also want to clear what little he has left. But I think in this situation, I could have did 2 damage to the face with my hero instead. but I think I really want to push my advantage here and clear anything he has on the board, so I just opted to clear with my hero and saved my unit by hitting. Now the beauty is, he might also hit the unit again. Okay, well, he could have hit it this turn, which would have, you know, did a lot of extra damage for me, but he had the Icy Touch in his hand. So, now what I can do is, let's see here. I could just ignore these units and do a ton of damage. I do have a Burninate in my hand. I might want to hold on to the Sunder because if we check our opponent's grave, he hasn't really played anything super big yet. And, you know, if we look at our deck list, you know, we have, you know, some pretty big units as well, like some 5-cost units. So considering that available information, I might want to hold on to my Sunder. Foul Stench would only kill the Ember Wolf and it would do damage to my Beast. However, I don't see that as really a bad idea, so maybe I'll trade with the Beast first. The order matters here. I will also make this trade, and I will use the Foul Stench last to clear. Now, the reason I did it in that order was if I Foul Stenched first, because of the Wither, I would have had less damage from the Beast. Didn't matter at which point I punched, because either way, Firemander wouldn't have taken any damage from my Foul Stench because that only does damage to units without Wither. Okay, so now he has his very big bad unit. But we are also getting pretty close to lethal here, and we do have a lot of mana available to us. So I think it's time we start counting. So I have 4 from my Beast, I have 2 from me. That is a total of 6. I just need to squeeze out 4 more damage. So my Oni gives my my unit 2/2, which is halfway there. And Sunder does 2 damage to any target. So that is our lethal. That is our 10 damage. The order of which this happens does matter. We need to make sure we use our Oni Smith first on our Beast. And then we can simply do the rest of the damage necessary to kill our opponent. And there you have it. That is kind of an introduction of how you play the game in real time. So as you can see, you know, I kind of just went through all the same steps we did in the bot match. I made sure to consider all the information that I had. I made sure to, you know, make a decision, consider all of my options, and I made sure to, you know, keep in mind the order in which I do things in order to optimize my turns. And everything I did was just to bring me closer and closer to, you know, ending my opponent. And by doing that, I either controlled the board, damage to my opponent, or, you know, drew cards for myself. Thanks for watching. This is the final video in my comprehensive guide series. I really hope you enjoyed everything that I had to teach and offer. Please like and subscribe and leave any comments down below. I welcome any and all questions, and I hope this helps make your beginner Skyweaver experience a little better.